Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a moment, I'm going to be heading my butt out the door to check out the new movie, Presence. This movie is directed by Steven Soderbergh and starring Lucy Liu. It tells the story of a family that move into a new house in the suburbs, and they start to think that this house might be possessed by some kind of supernatural force. Guys, this movie looks like it's going to be an absolute creep fest, haunted house horror story. And you know, in perfect honesty, I am not a huge fan of the haunted house genre in horror movies. However, this movie is directed by Steven Soderbergh, so it's got me quite intrigued. And you know what? It's enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It is time for me to head out the door because I need to go check out Presence. Welcome back, just getting home, and guys, while I did enjoy this movie, I don't see it having a lot of mass appeal. So let's get this started, shall we? We're going to get things started with, well, this time around I'm not going to call them negatives. Let's just call it things that I think the general public will not enjoy with this film, and then we're going to move into the positives. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the haunted house story. Now, if you go into this film expecting your typical haunted house movie, you are going to be sadly disappointed. I wouldn't even call this movie, well, I mean, I would call it a haunted house movie, but I wouldn't call this movie a horror film. I think this movie falls more into the psychological thriller area. There is not any real scares in this film. This is not a movie that would be considered traditionally scary. There is one jump scare in the movie, but other than that, there is no traditional scare forms or anything like that. This film tries to build more dread rather than scares, and we'll get into more of that when I get into the positives. The other thing about this movie is the cinematography. Again, this movie, just like the one I watched recently, Inheritance, it uses a more handheld cam. Now, this film was not filmed on an iPhone, but it was definitely filmed a majority on a handheld cam. So there are a lot of moments where the camera feels kind of floaty, and I do know that that kind of makes people feel a little ill, so just making you aware of that. So if this is something that would bother you, if you want to go into a movie that's more of a traditional haunted house, scary type of film, this movie is definitely not for you. It's actually a bit more of a psychological thriller with a family drama thrown in there, a slow burn style psychological thriller, not a horror movie. So with those expectations, you're probably going to be a little let down going into this movie. However, if you are wanting to see a movie that kind of turns the haunted house genre on its ear and presents the story in a much different way than I've seen before at least, then hang on to your butts because I'm about ready to lay down some compliments. Let's get into the positives, shall we? Now, I mentioned the cinematography mostly being a handheld cam. Now, that didn't bother me at all. I am a big fan of found footage horror films. Now, this movie is very smooth. When I said shaky, it's not shaky. It's just moments of floatiness, just like if you were a person standing there watching everything happen. And because you pretty much are, this movie is told from the perspective of the presence. And I'm going to keep calling it the presence of a supernatural force because it's not necessarily a ghost. You see the movie, it's a presence. It's a pretty good name for the film. Let's just put it that way. So it's told from the perspective of whatever force it is that's in this house. So you learn the story and the mystery unfold from the perspective of whatever this force is inside the house. You are the camera. You are going around from room to room, following family member to family member, putting together the story of what is exactly going on. Not only discovering out what you are, the presence, but you're also discovering what the family drama is and what is harming this family unit also. This presence isn't just necessarily a ghost either. It seems like it's more than that. It's something kind of Babadooky, you know? It's got a very allegory thing to it. It could be grief, it could be agony, it could be depression, it could be mental illness. But when someone is feeling in some kind of way like that, sorrow or something, the presence seems to show up. So it seems like this is more than just your average spirit horror film. But I really enjoyed the way that this story is presented by just giving you tidbits of from the ghost perspective. I thought that was a really unique way to not just shoot the movie with the cinematography, but I thought it was a different way to tell the story of what was going on. Now, don't expect all of the subplots and everything to get wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow. I think that was by design. There are some things that are also happening in the background of the family drama, but the family drama is not necessarily the main thing that you are there to watch. That's just kind of there to whet the appetite, to give you a little bit of that drama, the insight into the lives of these people, to give the characters a little fleshing out, motivation for their actions, and things of that sort. So this is something that was lacking from a movie like, In a Violent Nature, which was told through the perspective of the serial killer or the slasher. So we follow them primarily through the forest until they come kill somebody. While I thought that was a neat thing, it really didn't work for that genre of filming. But for a horror film such as this, a psychological thriller such as this, telling the story from the perspective, the limited perspective of this supernatural force, really sets this movie aside from a lot of films that I've seen like it in the past. And it made it feel very fresh and unique and different in this very saturated, overdone horror world of the haunted house movie. I liked the acting in this film. I thought that all of our actors did an excellent job. Lucy Liu, excellent job there. Chris Sullivan plays the father in this film, and I thought he delivered a fantastic performance. But the real surprise performance for me came from Kaylina Ling. I hope I got that right. I'm sorry if I did not. But she is the young actress who plays the daughter in this film, and she did an outstanding job with this role. She has a lot of moments where it just really depends on her using her body language and facial expressions and all to really push this feeling of dread. And that was something I really enjoyed about this movie too, was that it didn't focus on doing large choreographed scares or jump scares and all, but throughout the entire movie, you feel this overwhelming sense of dread. And because you're kind of a voyeur in all of this, you also feel like you really shouldn't be there in the first place. All in all, I think that Steven Soderbergh knocked it out of the ballpark with presenting a psychological thriller haunted house film in a different way that we just haven't seen before. But unfortunately, I just don't see the traditionalists really going to want to flock out there and check this movie out. But if this does not sound like something appealing to you that you would want to see in theaters, the film does take place in the house the entire time. You never really leave the house. Even if a character goes outside, we, the ghosts, still stay inside this house. So if you need a film that's got a little bit more action, a little bit more scares and all, told in a much more traditional way, I completely understand that. But I do feel this movie definitely deserves a watch if you are a fan of the haunted house genre, just to see what somebody else can do with this genre. So check this film out. If it's streaming, if you're also someone who's interested in seeing this movie, if you want to see some unique photography or cinematography and all, and a very different told horror haunted house story, definitely get out there and check this movie out in theaters. Otherwise, please watch this movie on streaming services, because I definitely think that this movie is deserving of a watch. Alright guys, thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. I'm gonna.